welcome to Make in India, New Deal for Defence. I'm Shireen Bhan. Many of India's homegrown defence companies are a product of sanctions and restrictions imposed by the West post the POKHARN nuclear tests. These sanctions have not deterred India from developing indigenous technologies that are cheaper, and they've also led to creating an ecosystem of small and medium enterprises that today play a key role in the field of avionics and defence electronics. India's first ever indigenous aircraft, the Light Combat Aircraft, or the LCA, could venture out into unmapped lands, thanks to a Kochi-based startup that built the antennas for seamless communication. Today, Verdant Telemetry has over 50 variants of antenna, and though this is a mere 5 crore rupee company, it is optimistic as it believes its technology allows it to venture into the commercial defence sector. CNBC TV 18's Purnima Murli travelled to Kochi in Kerala to find out more about the company's capabilities.
In the aftermath of the POKHARN 2 nuclear testing in 1998, India faced sanctions and restrictions on dual-use technology from world powers. But it wasn't all bad news. India had emerged a strong player in the area of nuclear technology, and the spotlight turned towards indigenous defence capabilities. Call it a stroke of good fortune, just a year earlier in 1997, Lewis and Kuruvilla George started their makeshift lab in a cowshed at their ancestral home in Kochi. This startup called Verdant Telemetry began by developing antennas, but soon saw an opportunity arising from the sanctions imposed on India and cut its teeth fulfilling orders that promoted the local development of defence capabilities.
Verdant initially started with antennas or ground applications, and soon we got an inquiry from DRDO for an airborne application. So it was a very interesting thing, being technology people interested in the domain, and we jumped on the opportunity, and we were fortunate to be able to prove that technology grown here or technology that is developed here in India was actually proving to be better in performance. So that was a big motivator, and in the actual trials it proved to have a longer range. That means the gain was definitely higher. Our gain measured in the lab was definitely showing much higher. So we started with that. We had actually waited for a couple of years to see whether orders are going to flow. It really did not happen. It happened after the POKHARN blast. I thank to the leadership then to take such decision. In a way, not directly, but indirectly, it has benefited us.
For Verdant, this cowshed is now just a reminder of where the magic all began.
I am at Verdant Telemetry's manufacturing facility in Cochin. This 3-acre plant is where Verdant makes its communication and navigation antennas, which help helicopters deployed by the Indian Army find their way in unknown territory. This 18-year-old company has carved a niche for itself with its lightweight antennas.
While ground antennas were Verdant's field of expertise, the Indian Armed Forces wanted antennas that could function in the air. This meant innovation, and Verdant jumped right in and began developing the technology it would need to make this product possible. The company's first order was to make an airborne antenna for India's first indigenous helicopter, the Advanced Light Helicopter. Developed by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited for the Indian Army, the Indian Navy and the Coast Guard, the Advanced Light Helicopter was used for both utility and attack roles, both during the day and at night. This was a crowning glory for the company and marked Verdant's entry into the defence space as a force to be reckoned with.
To do an antenna for the ALH, because they wanted to make the full system completely indigenized. This was the only part that was left non-indigenized. Okay. And we developed it. Once it was test flown on the aircraft, it was found to have a better range than the imported antenna, which was a big confidence builder with us and with our customers. So that took us forward. That was the turning point too.
HAL is not the only client. Since its inception, Verdant has been supplying cutting-edge antenna and related equipment to the Defence Research and Development Organization, Bharat Electronics Limited and Larsen & Toubro. Although its biggest client is Indian Defence, Verdant also supplies to the Indian space programs. In 2006, it designed and supplied ISRO with domes that would protect the antenna of a navigation satellite.
In India, it's predominantly the DRDOs and the DPSUs. 99% of our clients are DRDOs as it stands right now. DRDOs have their own projects. They develop their own systems, so we would be part of the project and do the antennas for them. Now we have the DPSUs, which are the HAL and the BEL, which are the production agencies. So subsequent commercialization will be taken up by them. There are also cases where we have directly worked with DPSUs.
Verdant's RF test facility comprises both in-house technologies and an outdoor far-field test range. The test facility helps measure antenna parameters and study radiation patterns. The company uses this facility to test airborne, shipboard and terrestrial antennas before supplying to its top clients. So far, Verdant has supplied 600 units of blade antennas and conformal antennas for multiple airborne platforms including UAVs, helicopters, supersonic aircraft and propeller aircraft like Dornier, advanced light helicopters, Rustam, Sukhoi 30 and light combat aircraft. It has also developed and manufactured 200 units of spiral antennas, all of which often make the difference between life and death.
This is the ADF antenna, primarily used for navigation. 100-odd units of these have been shipped to HAL for its Cheetah helicopter, AN-32 aircraft and Jaguar aircraft. A lost aircraft can find its way to the nearest station with the help of this antenna.
As the indigenously manufactured Tejas takes wings and gets inducted into the Defence Forces, Verdant will have one more reason to smile. These aircraft will boast Verdant's fin cap antenna, a first-of-its-kind product that will give the communication systems a big boost.
With over 50 variants of antennas in its portfolio, Verdant wants to go further. Now it wants to equip the Army choppers with active antennas which can automatically amplify weak signals. Another innovation is the beam steerable antennas, and these can turn the antenna beam towards the target without having to physically move the antenna, helping the Army get smarter.
While Verdant is known as a designer and builder of antennas for seamless communication, the company wants its identity to be more prolific. So as it constantly works on expanding its portfolio and carving a niche for itself, the next step in its plan is to expand into communication subsystems, which will give it a foothold in a much larger market, both in India and overseas. It also has an ambitious list of projects it wants to add to its kitty, from the Indian UAV project Rustam 2 to the trainer aircraft POK indigenization program to the fighter aircraft Jaguar upgradation program.
We are already getting into subsystems and systems in the RF domain. So that's where our expertise are. And we are already developed certain products which are tuners and transceivers which help communication. So we are now in a position to offer communication solutions, how you can improve the communication issues people are facing right now. So that is the way we are navigating.
But Verdant is the first to admit that one of the biggest challenges it faces, like any other MSME which has to compete with global players, is technology. This has Verdant relying on constant innovation to stay a beat ahead of competition. It's also working on trying to bring in a cultural shift in the way its employees look at technology.
We try to create an environment that is suitable for thinking minds. That is the kind of environment we try to create around here, and physically as well as in practice when you work. So the few things we try to do is try to bring about a culture of thinking innovative. Think about the solution.
Its USP is its homegrown technology, and to upgrade its technology, the company is investing primarily in its R&D facility. But while this focus on R&D has helped the company cement its position in the area of defense manufacturing, it has its own headwinds and pitfalls.
R&D per se is a challenging aspect, basically because R&D in itself does not bring you returns. So you need to spend a lot of our effort and money into R&D.
A broader and deeper portfolio will mean newer designs and capabilities, and one way to build this is through acquisitions. But this 18-year-old company says it would prefer partnering with other players to upgrade technology and capabilities rather than buy outright.
We are already in discussion or taken it further from discussing about where we can synergize the technology, and our technology with some other technology where we can offer solutions. So there are cases which I wouldn't want to disclose.
It's banking on the strategy to help it diversify its client base further and add commercial aerospace players to what is currently composed of Indian defense establishment and manufacturers.
This Indian aerospace domain is predominantly defense. So some of the technology which are developed here, we can be put into commercial application. So we are soliciting inquiries. We have some inquiries coming up. We are hopeful of translating it in a larger context. There the numbers are better. Scales are higher.
This diversification will be key in helping Verdant grow from a 5 crore rupee company to a 50 crore rupee company in the next 5 years. By then, Verdant hopes that 50% of its total revenues will come from exports.
If you talk about targets, we are setting a target of 50 crores in 2020. And by the time we want the export market to be at least 50% of that. We are not looking at export growing further in terms of percentage. We are looking at in 2025 to grow up to about 100 crores. Okay, so, but still we don't want to rely too much on exports. We want to have that balance kept. So it will be somewhere between 50 and 60% for the international market and in the Indian market. It won't be precisely balanced, no, in a band of 50 to 60%.
Verdant's products have caught the interest of global companies, especially products like this blade antenna. The company recently bagged an order from French defense firm Thales, and it also exports to the US and Israel.
As exports go, this is still uncharted territory for Verdant, and its client list is restricted to a handful of players like Sierra Nevada Corporation, Israel Aircraft Industries and Sikorsky Aircraft.
But if you want to hit the international segment, you have to be accepted home. It's very important. So we have sort of gone through that difficult cycle. You go and approach an international buyer. First question he asks is, what are the projects you supply at home? So fortunately for us, that difficult phase is now done. Or is it a difficult phase, really difficult phase. So you don't, if your home does not accept you, internationally they won't accept you. It's very clear. So the first step is that. Then we are seeing the next challenge to sustain in technology, for that meets internationally. There also the acceptance comes slowly, even if you are already accepted at home, they don't, arms wide, they don't, there should be a need. So you will have to invest in your marketing aspect, understand the requirement.
The 18-year-old Verdant has set the ball rolling to improve its turnover and export. But the company says a lot more needs to be done to nurture India's MSME defense sector. Verdant wants more changes in defense procurement policy, the offset policy and other tax regulations. And this is something that we've heard several times during the course of our current series. Verdant says the resolution to these issues can boost the MSME defense sector. But more on that when we return. You're watching Make in India, a new deal for defense. Welcome back. You're watching Make in India, a new deal for defense. I'm Shireen Bhan, and today we're focusing on telemetry and antenna systems. For Verdant, an 18-year-old company, the current framework for the MSME sector in the defense space is proving to be a hindrance. The company says there is an urgent need to focus on this sector since it is the hub for technological innovations and forms the backbone of any system integrator. Verdant Telemetry feels the current framework of policies, like the defense procurement policy, the offset policy and tax regulations, have so far ignored the existence, the importance and the role of the MSME sector. they hope that the new policy will bring more parity and opportunities for the MSME space. Purnima Murli discusses the opportunities and challenges faced by the company and the sector with Louis George, the Managing Director of Verdant Telemetry.
We are focusing on developing India's defense industry with a sense of mission. This is why it is at the heart of our Make in India program. We are reforming our defense procurement policies and procedures. There will be a clear preference for equipment manufactured in India.
Prime Minister Modi is confident that defense output will double if the domestic procurement increases from 40% to 70% in the next 5 years. And Verdant Telemetry is betting big on this opportunity. It is confident it will play a bigger role in the coming years, but worries that the long procurement cycle may prove to be a big hurdle.
Mostly MSMEs will be addressing some components or subsystems and so on. So, when you are addressing that and you look at the gestation for the whole project, it's pretty long. So, if you cut short the time, it definitely helps the MSMEs.
While the defense procurement policy of 2013 opened up a 90,000 crore rupee offset opportunities for player and defense public sector undertakings and companies in the MSME sector, this offset policy was cut to size after the government scrapped the Rafale deal, a deal that had a 50% offset requirement. It's this kind of uncertainty that has MSME players in the field feeling uneasy. To hedge against such occurrences, MSMEs like Verdant are reinventing themselves, but competing against global players is a big gamble. So Verdant hopes that new policy will encourage companies to set up facilities in the country.
If policies encourage people setting up shops here, will definitely do a good job. So earlier we were talking about the percentage coming and all that, not dwelling on that. It should enable more people to set up shops here.
Verdant is already exporting to clients in the US and European markets. But that's not enough for the company which wants to grow its top line 10 times in the next 5 years. While the Prime Minister wants India to be an export hub for defense equipment, the company hopes there will soon be some clarity in the export regime, which will make life a little easier.
It should enable export. I mean, there is a lot of clarity issues when you see in exports. Shortfall of clarity is that. Make things clearer, then it will make it easier, because those who have already grown technology here don't have a possibility of exporting it directly. So if suppose you're creating a environment that things are made easier, you can straight away start exporting.
Verdant admits that the antenna segment is a minuscule portion of the entire defense equipment universe, but it hopes that the government's Make in India initiative will help it expand its overall production capacity and open up new vistas for growth.
We are focused pretty lot on Make in India. We should also focus more on design, develop and Make in India. When I look and talk from the Verdant angle, that's what I would like to share. This is not so generic, but there are companies and there are capabilities in India which can develop its own product. These are the specialist small companies. And the larger companies are so focused on getting the size right. Okay, they just tie up with somebody, get the technology and move forward. You really don't have a complete growing up of the technology here. If suppose you look at the requirement of antennas in India, we are addressing only a small fraction, where our capacity utilization is just about 20 to 25% of what we can do. I can easily expand it further.
But Make in India alone will not be enough. Verdant argues that currently not many Indian players buy components made in India, and the government does little to help small defense players break into the big league by supplying to the commercial sector.
The biggest challenge is bringing it up to a commercial scale. It is highly market dependent, and the market environment, that is where policies and decision makers could play a big role. And once that shift starts, then you can slowly start things to show results. The commercial challenge is a challenge which will get addressed only when the policy matters do help, make a bigger dent on it. if the component is available in India, I'm seeing this put into practice in other countries, it should be given a protection. India, we are addressing only a small portion of the market that is available in India. There is no protection for Indian companies. They're merely importing.
Taxation is another issue Verdant faces. The company hopes the government will look into the uneven tax structure which forces many companies to bid for programs through JVs and associates. It also wants the tax rules around related party transactions to be relaxed.
Tax-wise, we think we should be put on an even par. We are put on an uneven par. In fact, somebody who imports something has no taxes on it. We have, in all cases, we have to go through the full tax regime of sales tax or central excise. Everything is applicable to us. So it has to be put on an even par. So only then we will have any possibility of competing.
FDI is another problem area, but one where there has been some traction of late. Last year, when the FDI cap in defense was hiked to 49%, Verdant was able to bring in NRI investment to the tune of 23 lakh rupees. Verdant acknowledges that the government's policy-making skills are top-notch, but says that execution is sorely lacking. So while top policy makers may be keen on making it easier for defense firms to do business, that sentiment does not carry all the way down the bureaucracy.
There are policies being talked about MSME and reservation, but we have to still see action in the ground. Policy is generally getting inclined towards this area, and it's an ongoing process. As long as the leadership is continuing that momentum there, it's fine, and it has to evolve. One fine day you can't change many things, but what you can have to really bring about, it's seen to reflect in the senior level, but it has to percolate down. So things have to come into action. That is what is now more important to be seen than the policy, because policy-wise you already started, and the movement has to continue.
Well, that was Verdant Telemetry, an MSME company with the potential to make it in the global defense market. Verdant is now widening its portfolio to subsystems. From a predominantly defense player, it's also set to explore the commercial space. With the Modi government's Make in India push, it hopes conducive policies will allow the company to make a mark in the global avionics market. Verdant is also set to develop and manufacture more components for its Indian and global clients. We hope the dream of every MSME of becoming a global niche player rings true. Well, with that, it's time for us to wrap up this week's edition of Make in India, a New Deal for Defense. We'll be back next week with more stories from the Indian defense sector. Till then, from all of us here, goodbye and thanks for watching.